Ever wondered what toxic masculinity really means? It's a term that's been tossed around in conversations, debates, and news headlines. But to truly grasp its meaning, we need to strip it down to its core. Toxic masculinity, in essence, refers to harmful societal norms that dictate how a real man should behave. These norms often emphasize traits like aggression, dominance, and emotional suppression. It's the belief that men should be the strong, silent types, always in control, never showing vulnerability. This isn't about being a man, but rather about conforming to a rigid, narrow idea of manhood that's not only unrealistic, but can also be damaging. But where does this toxic masculinity come from? It's deeply rooted in societal pressures and expectations. From a young age, boys are bombarded with messages about what it means to be a man. They're told to man up, to never cry, to always be tough. These messages are woven into the fabric of our everyday lives, perpetuated through media, culture, and even the language we use. The problem with this is that it confines men to a box, a stereotype, leaving no room for individuality or emotional expression. It promotes a culture of aggression where dominance is prized over empathy, and power is valued more than compassion. It discourages men from expressing their feelings, leading them to bottle up their emotions, which can wreak havoc on their mental health and personal relationships. Moreover, toxic masculinity doesn't just affect men. It impacts everyone regardless of gender. It underpins a lot of the sexism and gender inequality we see in our society today. It fosters a culture that disrespects and devalues women and anyone who doesn't fit into the traditional gender binary. Toxic masculinity, thus, isn't about being a man, but about a harmful construct that affects us all. It's about the damaging behaviors and attitudes that society often associates with being a man. But it's important to remember that masculinity itself is not toxic. It's the unhealthy, harmful aspects of these societal norms that we refer to when we talk about toxic masculinity. But how does toxic masculinity affect individuals on a personal level? Let's delve into that. Toxic masculinity can take a significant toll on an individual's mental health. The pressure to conform to stereotypes of stoicism and emotional suppression can lead to feelings of isolation, anxiety, and even depression. Imagine feeling like you're constantly wearing a mask to hide your authentic self or to suppress your emotions because they're deemed unmanly. That's a heavy burden to carry, and it's a reality for many navigating toxic masculine norms. Self-esteem, too, is often impacted. When individuals feel they must measure up to unrealistic standards of toughness or dominance, it can damage their self-worth. They might feel like they're never enough, always falling short of this idealized version of manhood. This can lead to a vicious cycle of self-doubt, self-criticism, and low self-esteem. And let's not forget the strain toxic masculinity can put on relationships. It can distort one's understanding of respect, consent, and equality, leading to unhealthy dynamics. The belief that men must always be in control, for instance, can breed power imbalances. Or the idea that men can't express vulnerability can stifle communication and emotional intimacy. We've heard countless stories from people grappling with these challenges. Take, for example, the story of a man who spent years struggling with feelings of isolation and anxiety because he felt he couldn't express his emotions openly. Or the tale of a teenager who felt immense pressure to act tough, leading to self-doubt and strained relationships with his peers. These narratives underscore the personal toll of toxic masculinity. They highlight the challenges of navigating a world where masculine norms can feel like an unyielding mold, forcing individuals to fit into a box that stifles their true selves. It becomes evident that toxic masculinity can have a profound effect on an individual's mental and emotional well-being. Let's not forget, toxic masculinity extends its reach beyond the individual, impacting society as a whole. When we talk about toxic masculinity, we're not just talking about individual actions or attitudes. We're talking about a system that upholds rigid, harmful gender norms and perpetuates a cycle of violence, discrimination, and inequality. Take a moment and think about the societal implications of toxic masculinity, the traits often associated with it, aggression, dominance, emotional suppression, these aren't just harmful to the individuals who feel pressured to conform to them. They are harmful to society as a whole. Consider the stark gender inequality that persists across the globe. This inequality isn't just about pay gaps or representation in leadership roles. It's about a culture that values dominance and aggression, traits often associated with masculinity, over cooperation and empathy. This culture not only marginalizes and oppresses women, but it also limits the potential of men, confining them to a narrow, harmful definition of what it means to be masculine. And then there's violence. The World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced physical or sexual violence, mostly by an intimate partner. This violence is a direct result of toxic masculine norms that normalize and excuse aggressive behavior. Moreover, toxic masculinity fuels discrimination. It contributes to homophobia, as it stigmatizes any behavior that deviates from traditional masculine norms. It fuels sexism, as it upholds the belief that men are superior to women. And it perpetuates misogyny, as it devalues and degrades anything associated with femininity. These issues, gender inequality, violence, discrimination, they're not isolated incidents. They're part of a bigger picture, a system that upholds toxic masculine ideals. And this system doesn't just harm individuals, it harms us all. So as we continue to explore and challenge toxic masculinity, let's remember that this isn't just about individual change. It's about societal change. Because when we challenge toxic masculinity, we're not just creating a healthier, more inclusive environment for individuals. We're creating a healthier, more inclusive society. Indeed, the societal ramifications of toxic masculinity are far-reaching and deeply ingrained. So, how can we challenge and change these harmful norms? It's a question that requires action and introspection. Let's start with the individual level. It begins with acknowledging that toxic masculinity exists and recognizing its signs. This could be anything from the suppression of emotions, the need to dominate, or the perpetuation of gender stereotypes. By being aware of these behaviors in ourselves and others, we can start to challenge them. One powerful tool we have at our disposal is communication. Talk about your feelings, your fears, your dreams. Encourage open dialogue about emotions and mental health. By doing so, we break the cycle of emotional suppression, a key component of toxic masculinity. Next, we need to redefine strength. Strength isn't just physical prowess or emotional stoicism. It's also about being empathetic, vulnerable, and emotionally available. It's about having the courage to be authentic and true to oneself, even when it goes against societal expectations. Now let's zoom out and look at the societal level. As a society, we have the power to challenge toxic masculinity through education and policy changes. Schools, workplaces, and media can play a pivotal role in breaking down harmful stereotypes. They can promote gender equality, respect for all genders, and a more inclusive definition of masculinity. We can also challenge toxic masculinity by holding individuals and institutions accountable for their actions. This includes calling out sexist behavior, advocating for equal rights and opportunities, and supporting victims of gender-based violence. Remember, it's not about demonizing masculinity or men. It's about challenging the harmful aspects of a socially constructed concept. It's about creating a world where all individuals, regardless of their gender, are free to express themselves authentically, without fear of judgment or prejudice. By challenging toxic masculinity, we can begin to rewrite the narrative around what it means to be a man. And in doing so, we create a healthier, more inclusive society where everyone can thrive. But masculinity itself isn't the problem. Let's spotlight the positive aspects of masculinity. Masculinity, when unshackled from harmful stereotypes, can embody traits such as compassion, vulnerability, and empathy. These qualities are not antithetical to masculinity, rather, they enrich it. Picture a father tenderly holding his newborn, unafraid of the tears brimming in his eyes. Imagine a group of friends sitting around a campfire, sharing their fears and dreams without judgment. These are men who have broken free from the chains of toxic norms, embracing a healthier, more authentic expression of masculinity. They are role models, not just for other men, but for society at large, demonstrating that strength isn't about dominance, but about understanding and empathy. The narrative of masculinity is changing, evolving, growing. Men are stepping out of the shadows of toxic expectations, bringing light to the true potential of positive masculinity. These examples show us that masculinity can be a force for good when freed from toxic constraints. As we've seen, the impact of toxic masculinity is far-reaching. It manifests itself in many ways, from aggression and dominance to emotional suppression. And it doesn't just affect individuals. It seeps into the fabric of our society, perpetuating gender inequality, violence, and discrimination. Yet, we've also seen that it's possible to challenge these harmful norms and redefine what it means to be masculine. By questioning stereotypes, promoting gender equality, and respecting all genders, we can start to dismantle the structures of toxic masculinity. We've highlighted the positive aspects of masculinity, like compassion, vulnerability, and empathy. By embracing these traits, we can move away from toxic norms and towards a healthier, more authentic expression of masculinity. Thank you for joining us. Remember, by redefining masculinity, we can promote healthier, inclusive relationships for all. Let's continue to challenge, question, and redefine, because a better world is possible, and it starts with us.